Hello, this is w.i.t.c.h.aholic, finally making another video. I have a lot of ideas, but there is life. I'm trying to write a book, so I will try to make videos, but I don't know how much and how long. Now, I didn't start this channel to be political. I'm gonna make a political video and one or two others, at least on the subject of Israel and Palestine, because as a Jew, I have to do my part to correct falsehoods, of which there is a lot. So this video is going to be about how anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism, and a lot of people say that it's not, but those people tend to be not Jewish, and so not the ones who decide what's anti-Semitic. So first, though, we have to define what's anti-Semitic, and there's a few parts. So this part is going to be about one, which is the making up stuff about Judaism, which is exactly what it sounds like. Anti-Semites just make up stuff about everything about Judaism, and if it's not made up, they're taking a grain of truth and wrapping it up in and twisting it in lies. And then other anti-Semites, just believe them somehow because they think they know our religion better than us, and on it goes. And that's how we got such nonsense like the blood libel and how it's stuck around for so long. And that's how we still have so many lies about like everything in Judaism, what our words mean, what our holy books say, and that is exactly what the anti-Zionists do. They don't know the meaning of Zionism, they refuse to research, so they make up their own idea of what it means and so what anti-Zionism means. And then they say they're not anti-Semitic, even though they are making up a definition of a Jewish word and refusing to do any research on what the actual definition is. So, Zionism, as we have to explain ad nauseum because all the stupid anti-Semites can't do research, is and has always been the belief that Jews deserve self-determination in our ancestral homeland of Israel. And we've been always Zionists for at least 2,000 years. And there were always Jews moving to Israel. Just it didn't become a political movement till the 1880s. And we didn't actually get our own country till 1948. But now it's here, and so Zionism, ever since then, also means the belief that Israel has a right to exist and defend itself, just like any other country. If you don't think Jews should be able to have our own country in our ancestral homeland, and that our country doesn't have a right to exist and defend itself, you are a frothing at the mouth, loony anti-Semite. Okay. But that's not all of anti-Zionism. Anti-Zionists are also making up history and what it means to be Jewish, which that's like not even the Nazis did. At least they recognized that Jews are Jews, no matter what we look like, and no matter that a lot of us lived in Europe, we were still Jewish, and we were even told in the 1930s to go back to Palestine because everyone knew, even though it's called Palestine, was still Israel and our ancestral homeland. By the way, that note, it's just really funny how anti-Semites now tell us to get out of Palestine and back to Europe. Again, because these people are stupid. But anyway, yes, Jews are Jewish, no matter where we come from. There's this big thing with anti-Semites that they're trying to say, well, we're not, Jews are European, which again, that's not what the anti-Semites were saying for 2,000 years. They were murdering us for being Jews, and now they telling us to go to Palestine. Now they're telling us that we're Europeans and to go back to Europe. Which, by the way, you don't see anyone else telling any other ethnic minority who they are and what they should identify as. But all of a sudden, when it comes to Jews, the anti Semites say that they're the ones who decide what we are, what we identify us, and how we should identify, and they're not anti Semites. If they would do this about any other ethnic minority, they'd be called racist. But now that they do it about Jews, they're not. Yeah. And also, Jews are from Israel. So I'm gonna first explain that, then go back to Judaism, which, like, everybody knows because everybody knows about the Bible. As we say, the Torah, which has very detailed history of, us being in Israel, having our kingdoms, and everything. So it's not really like you have to do research. Like, this is stuff that the average person knows. At least, the biblical part. But, to know about after the biblical, it's very easy to Google and, spend a few minutes just reading about after, the biblical period. So when people say Jews aren't from Israel, they are ignoring history, didn't even take a few minutes of time to Google history. But they say they're not anti-Semites. Again, part of anti-Semitism is refusing to do any research on Judaism and making up your own things. And when you make up your own history of where Jews come from and everything, wow, that is like a new level. So if you, again, and because they don't research, again, I say make up history because they make up a whole history of how there was a Palestine always and Jews decided to settle this random land, and the British for some reason decided to give it to us randomly. Again, if these people would just take a few minutes to Google, which they don't because they're anti-Semites, they'll see that there was never a Palestine. It was just a name for the region. It became known as Palestine because after the Romans conquered us, and you could read all about that on the freaking internet, they renamed the area Syria Palestina or Palestine. So, again, these people are making up a history, which is, oh my god, that is just a new level of stupidity and anti-Semitism and delusion. Especially, of course, when they cannot provide any archaeological and written evidence, because there wasn't any. Meanwhile, every dig of a shovel in Israel shows, Jewish archaeological artifacts, because That's our ancestral homeland, and that's where we're from, but somehow, no, we're not from Israel, we're from Europe. Make it make sense. Okay, now to the whole how Jews work. Again, there's a when it comes to Jews, and again only Jews because anti-Semites are so stupid, and they again somehow think reality doesn't apply to us. They would never go on about how X ethnic minority isn't really, but then they go on and on about how Jews aren't really Jews, and there's a few conspiracy theories. The one I'm going to talk about is about how Jews are from Europe. Now, this one, like I mentioned before, does have a grain of truth, which, yes, Jews are, well, so many Jews like mine, our ancestors, lived in Europe. But as with all the other anti Semitic things that are based on a grain of truth, it's just a grain of truth wrapped in lies. Now, the reason, again, which is very easy to look up from the internet, why our ancestors lived in Europe is because after the Romans conquered us, Jews ended up everywhere else. Many ended up in Europe, many ended up in other countries like the Islamic ones. But of course, these no anti-Semites never mention, Sephardim and Mizrahim, right? It's only Ashkenazim. And they make a big deal about us Ashkenazi Europeans, well, not Jewish. Again, like, Jews are all over the world because we're all from Israel. After being conquered by the Romans, we ended up everywhere. Like, I wonder, do these people even know that? And they're ignoring it? Or they're just like refuse to do the most basic Google search and they're just, making up stuff? Either way, it's just bizarre how these people can be so stupid on purpose. Especially again, these people are not Jewish, and they're saying that, Ashkenazim aren't Jewish because they're European and they're white. Again, for 2,000 years, we were murdered for not being European and white. Also, again, they're not Jewish, so they don't decide who's Jewish or not. We do. I'm sure they understand this with all other ethnic minorities, so this deliberate stupidity is mind-boggling. Anyway, again, as we also have to explain ad nauseum because anti-Zionists are anti-Semites and refuse to do any research, Judaism is an ethno-religion and has nothing to do with skin color or Europe. Never did. Jews can be from anywhere and still be Jewish because it's an ethnicity. Again, those of us who are Ashkenazi and ancestors and living in Europe, our ethnicity did not change. I mean, and again, I bet these people don't have this idea about anyone else, but somehow when it comes to Jews, they think our ethnicity magically changed and we became not Jewish because our ancestors ended up in Europe. I know these people are stupid, but just how do they get these ideas? So anyway, again, Judaism is an ethno-religion, and that's why Jews from all over the world and from every skin color and skin tone are Jews, because we're ethnically Jewish and we're all from Israel, which is the whole point of the modern state of Israel and Zionism. Which, by the way, again, I know these people are stupid, but how exactly do they think we came up with the Zionism in the first place and the state of Israel if we didn't come from there in the first place? Like, why would on earth would we have a whole movement that's about returning to ancestral homeland if it wasn't our ancestral homeland? Like, and again, there's archaeology. Uh, Coincidentally, really not, because that is ancestral homeland. You find coins and synagogues and ritual baths and scrolls from all, eras, that are Jewish. You even find plenty of biblical things, even from other countries. Like, they found the black obelisk of Sennacherib, where he discusses capturing King Hezekiah, and they're always finding seals with biblical names. But no, magically we're not from Israel, we're from Europe, and we just decided to come to this random place and randomly. But they're not anti-Semites, but they are making up history and Jewish history and everything. I really like to know, for anyone who's watching this and has these beliefs, how you are so stupid on purpose and you're making up history and rewriting it. Okay. That's not all. Also, because they're making up history and the origins of Jews, they also make up English words like colonialism and indigenous. Colonialism is another country or another kingdom or empire sending an army to take over another country, to send resources back, to the mother kingdom or empire. So if you're colonists, you have a homeland to go back to. Like, again, all other colonists. So, like, when the British colonized America and all the other European countries that sent, colonists and stuff, yeah, they were colonists from colonial empires and kingdoms. There is no Jewish kingdom or empire because Israel is our homeland, and that's the whole point of returning. Again, that's why we have Zionism, which is about returning to our ancestral homeland. Since when do colonists say that the country they're colonizing is their ancestral homeland? I mean, come on. This is, again, it's so easy with the freaking internet, but no. These people, again, talk about anti-Semites. They're not content with making up definitions of Jewish words. They're making up definitions of English words. And then they have the nerve to say they're not anti-Semites. Yeah, right. They're not fooling at us. And again, so because of that, they also make up the word indigenous, which again has a very specific definition, which is on the internet. Indigenous people are people with their distinct culture, religion, and language. And that does not change, right? So you can't become indigenous just because you moved to another country and are living there, right? No one will ever say Americans are suddenly indigenous and Native Americans aren't. No, we still call them Native Americans. So what for all the other indigenous groups, right? The Aboriginals, for example, we all recognize that they're indigenous because they have their own distinct culture and religion and language and customs, and that's why we have the land back movement. because we recognize that they are the rightful owners of the land, and that should be recognized. They should have land back, which is why it's the land back movement. But all of a sudden, when it comes to Jews, so we have our own culture and religion tied to Israel. We have our own language, which is Hebrew, the language the Torah is, and everything. All of a sudden, we're not indigenous, but the Palestinians are, who are Arabs, which is why they speak Arabic, and who don't have any written or archaeological records because they're not indigenous. And but that's not everyone. There are people who would, accept the indigenous label, but then say we, still having ancestors who lived here thousands of years ago doesn't mean we're entitled to come back to our land, blah, blah, blah. Again, you don't see that by any other indigenous group. That's why all the other indigenous groups have land back. Because even if, like Native Americans, they were moved to reservations to other states, we still recognize they're they're still indigenous because they still have their distinct culture and everything associated with the land. So, and there's no expiration date on being indigenous. But when it comes to Jews, all of a sudden these people will say, even if we were indigenous, we're not because of time and blah, blah, blah. But they're not anti-Semites, even though they're redefining the word indigenous by us and only us. So, to recap, anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism because it involves making up things about Judaism and refusing to do any research and just blindly believing and parroting whatever random non-Jews say. It involves making up how Jewish ethnicity is, making up history of us, denying archaeology, and rewriting history. Um, hope I love to hear your comments if you think of yourself as anti-Zionist, how you explain your very bizarre, unintelligent views, and I have in mind to make a few more, at least one or two more, how anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism, about the connecting it with the other factors of anti-Semitism.